What's going on, everyone? It is the Conservative Christian here, coming back at you guys with another video for today. I don't have the air blasting in the background today because it's actually nice out, finally. We've been getting some cold weather here in October because this place is a horrible place to live in. So, here's what I'm going to try to do. I know that right now you've seen my last two videos on this topic, and I'm going to try and make this a three-parter for your guys' sake. So let's kind of get into it, I guess. I've recorded this thing, like, I want to say it's been like 3 times now. And this video just ends up being long, so it's probably still going to end up being a 4-parter when I initially said it was going to be a 2-part. But for context, what 2-part means in this series, whatever you want to call it, is just that the first 2 videos are the first part, and then the next 2 videos are the second. So just so there's no confusion as to, you know, why I made 4 videos when I said I was only going to make 2. So, okay, so last time I left off with you guys, I mentioned how I felt like just kind of like how everything has been shifting kind of a little bit, right? Like we had the whole Brett Kavanaugh thing happen, but during it going on, the thing that I noticed was just that we quickly moved from, you know, we quickly used just the case itself before any like final conclusion was made, or, you know, just to see if they were going to take it to court or something like that. People on the left were using this whole situation as an excuse or a reason to talk about rape culture, which is kind of bizarre because I don't believe that we obviously live in a rape culture. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today. And I just how did we just so quickly jump from Brett Kavanaugh to rape culture? I mean, there was no evidence provided against him that was damning. There was no court trial where evidence was presented and they still let him off. There was nothing like that, but yet the left again used this as a way to say, see, this proves that we live in a rape culture. And I want to make sure that we define this properly, because I think that there is a confusion on the left as to words and how they actually work. I've noticed this time and time again with my conversations online with people and how they like to redefine and twist words. For example, because racism exists in the United States still, that somehow proves that we live in a systemic, that there is still systemic racism, especially when how people like to just ignore the laws that exist, that people do, that cause them to end up in these situations in the first place. Obviously, for that's a whole different conversation for a different time, probably sometime in February when that's, it's Black History Month. I'll probably end up talking about my opinions on that whole thing. But then you see the same thing here with rape culture, right? People say that because they were raped, or that because they know a handful of people that were raped, and that they're the people who supposedly sexually assaulted them or raped them, because they're not in prison or jail, that proves that we live in a rape culture. Now, part of this video is to hopefully kind of clear this atmosphere, the stigma that exists in the United States about this rape culture, this fear-mongering idea that rape is just so prominent out there in the world that, women should fear for their lives, and that, that this proves that we live in some kind of patriarchy with misogynists running rampant left and right. I'm going to hopefully try and clear that air today, and hopefully we can, come to a conclusion on that. But so let me start by explaining what rape culture is. Not what I think it is, not how I feel it is. This is the actual definition, the widely accepted definition of what rape culture is. And people literally overcomplicate this. They take, you know how I've said before in the past that, there's always a truth and a lie? Well, this is where the truth and the lie is. So what people on the left like to do is they like to think that because the word rape is in the word rape culture, that because half of the word definition is there, that somehow means that it's also, then it can throw in the rest of it. You have to take both words in the entire equation. So this is something that I've said in the past. The left likes to redefine words. They like to try and ignore reality. Context doesn't matter. And they're literally, they're not even overthinking it. They're underthinking this, because defining the word rape culture is literally as simple as taking the definitions of two words and kind of just putting them together. So yeah, on the one hand, you have rape, bad. We all agree that that's bad. Rape is, it's forcible, coercive, or, any kind of force sexually that involves penetration on someone. And culture is the common practices, beliefs of a society or of a group of people, a nation, whatever you want to call it. So literally, when you put those two words together, the actual definition is rape culture means that it is a group or a society of people that condones, supports, or trivializes rape. So when you take that, the actual definition of the word, the phrase, it's actually two words. When you take the definition of that, that's what it means. You think I'm making this up? Literally Google search it. Look it up. It's there. It's there. The left does not grasp the concept that people have access to the internet. They do not grasp the concept that I can fact check the crap that they put out and easily find out what's wrong with their arguments or their definitions or what have you. And I just think, do you guys are you guys really that full of yourselves that you don't think? I mean, I understand that you guys, think that you have to be told how to live by the left. And that's a common thing that I've noticed, is that you guys have to be fed how to live your life. But just because that's how you choose to live your life, that doesn't mean that everyone out there has to live their life the same way. And as it turns out, people like me have a brain of their own. They can research these things. I can exercise my independency, and I can look this stuff up on my own and see if what you're saying is true. And as it turns out, what you're saying is not true. So here's the thing, right? This is how it translates to me. When people say that because rape happens in the United States, that proves that it's rape culture, when they don't take into consideration the culture part, that's literally the same thing as saying that because a tornado ripped apart a small town somewhere in the middle of nowhere in the country somewhere, that proves that we live in a nation that is running rampant with tornadoes and that we're all going to die. It's a ridiculous argument. Anyone out there with half a brain knows and realizes that that's a stupid argument to make, and that that's not true. Tornadoes happen. Rape happens. Murder happens. That doesn't mean that because some things happen to some degree that proves that it manifests in a larger scale. This is something that you see the left doing with just about everything. They take anecdotes of everything and they apply it to the majority when it comes to, what about rape when it comes to abortion? Is that okay? They try and use the vast minority of abortion cases to try and justify the majority of abortions. Racism happens in America, so that means that everything that happens, as a result of white people and black people is racism. Not true. And of course, rape happens, and I know some people who've been raped, so that proves that we live in rape culture. You guys need to seriously to do some research. You guys need to learn what logic and facts are, because you seem to have no I can't even, this is ridiculous. I can't even speak. You guys seem to have no concept of what these things are. And I'm sorry, but I know that you guys like to live in your reality, but here's the thing. You live in the real world. You live in a world that has laws and rules that don't care about what you think about them. Gravity doesn't care what you have to say about them. You can curse at gravity. You can tell it that it sucks all you want, but guess what? If you jump off of a skyscraper, you can swear and curse at that gravity all you want. If you don't have the proper means to defy that gravity, you are going to plummet to your death, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what you think. And that is the exact same thing here. I hope that this is a good starting point, that people out there can maybe start thinking about this a little bit more, because this is what women out there who actually experience actual rape and sexual assault, this is part of the reason why you guys have such a hard time coming forward, is because you have been told that you live in a society that is oppressive. And what's really going on is that people on the left are taking the vast minority of cases and saying that applies to the broad. That's not only illogical. If you take anything, if you take any situation, tornadoes, rape, racism, whatever, if you take any case and you say the same thing that people are saying, that sounds dumb. And on top of that, that's a logical fallacy. If I know that the left probably isn't familiar with fallacies, they haven't grasped like how logic and rationale work. But anyone out there, I encourage you to actually look up logical fallacies, because that's what it is. I don't remember the name of the fallacy, but it is a logical fallacy. I don't have to say that's a fallacy for you to obviously realize how stupid it sounds, but I hope that's at least a good starting point for people out there to start thinking about, maybe what I've been told about the stigma behind this isn't really that prominent, and maybe this is actually based off of anecdotes, because it is. So let's keep going. So, that was a rant. So that's how it works. That is what rape culture is. That is the definition of rape culture. That's not what I think it is. That's not how I feel it is. That is the definition of rape culture, whether you like it or not. Now, look, to be fair, to some degree, I can maybe understand how the left feels like they don't know when to accept what words mean, because, you have, for example, you have the word terrorism, for example, and, terrorism, is actually not defined kind of by its prefix, which is terror. It has a broader meaning. People think that anything that happens that instills fear in people, that is an example of terrorism. So I guess by that logic, car accidents are terrorism. I don't know what freak accidents are terrorism. No, they all have definitions. And look, if that word has confused people for some reason as to how to properly define words, I can kind of understand that, because it kind of makes logical sense to say that, well, if rape culture means putting those two words together, then terrorism is also an example of kind of putting the word, anything that involves fear. It makes sense logically, at least, but it's still not true. Words still have meanings, they have definitions, and there is a way that we use them in the United States. And you can choose to accept or believe the definitions that we go by, but just because you feel like we're not using the word correctly, or you have a subjective opinion about how that word should be defined, that doesn't mean that that's not what it is. So, it's all a war on words here. So let me keep going, because this is gonna take too long if I keep getting caught up on these minor details. So let me give it, well, I'll get to that in a second, but so I think that it's on a large scale, I think that it's actually women out there, other women out there, who are actually the ones who are trivializing this issue for other women. So let me kind of explain, because people are probably saying, like, how does that work? So what I've noticed from videos that I've watched, from conversations that I've had, here's kind of been the common trend. I've thought that it's bizarre that a lot of women out there who have been open about their past, whether if they've been sexually assaulted or raped, those women have actually defended Brett Kavanaugh. And of course, on the flip side, the women who have not said anything, or, for example, maybe they said they were raped or sexually assaulted, but they didn't go to court, as far as I know, those are the ones that are actually yelling the loudest. And, it's kind of funny, because I hear on the left that, oh, well, it's hard for a woman to come forward, so when she does, we should believe her. But the same women who say that are the ones who seem to be speaking about this thing so freely and so flippantly and so loudly. Whereas, the people who do talk about it, they're very calm about it. They're using it as an example, actually, to disprove. I just think that's kind of interesting. That's kind of funny to some degree. That, this is something that my dad told me when I was younger. He said usually the person that screams the loudest is the one who's wrong. And that definitely I think resonates true here, because it's all the people on the left when it comes to this subject who are the ones screaming. I mean, for some people you might have seen, where there are people holding a protest and a riot at the the doors of the Supreme Court, saying shut it down, acting like children. I don't know what they expected to accomplish. You had people crying for I don't know what reason. It was pathetic. It was a bunch of adults acting like children, and that's typical of the left. I mean, I don't expect anything. There's nothing new there, but it still makes me shake my head and wonder and say, wow, this is actually the people that live in a civilized society that act like children. But so I think so. It's funny, right? And then I've seen even videos too. One of them was Steven Crowder's Change My Mind of the rape culture one, where the first girl that he interviewed, she made the claim so effortlessly that she was raped on her campus and that her rapist was still walking around going to class. And even within that conversation with Steven, when she started kind of getting a little bit out of hand, when a cop had to kind of come up and keep the peace, and she said something like, oh, I was raped, and and here's the thing, right? It's like the officer offered help. He said, "Can I help you?" But she this is the thing, like, why does it seem to be that people on the left only care about justice or about these issues when there's a political gain? Because she had the opportunity then and there, if she hadn't done anything before, to come forward or to file a report or to do something, but she chose to instead elevate herself above the entirety of the situation and put all the attention on the fact of how upset she was. And, maybe that's just the way that she expresses it, which is kind of odd for people like me on my side, because we think more rationally and logically about things. But it's like, how self-defeating can you be, where you claim that you were raped, that your rapist was still walking around on campus, and now when an officer approaches you and asks you if he can help, you don't even acknowledge his presence. You don't say anything. And this is an important, it could be anecdotal, but for context, I want to put some context into these kinds of things to maybe help people think about things, or maybe see things from a different angle as to why certain things might be. So what I'm talking about here is that, yes, there are people out there who do say that they were either sexually assaulted or raped, and then they also then make the claim that the person who did this to them is not in jail. Now, at face value, that sounds bad, right? But I want to ask why. Because here's the thing. As far as I know, and especially based on her interaction, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but as far as I know, all of these people who have mentioned that they have been victims of something, all they've ever done is complain about it. As far as I know, that's even very reflective in the statistics too, because 93 to 98% of all cases that are brought forward with evidence, 93 to 98% of all cases brought forward that involve rape are in the victim's favor, right? So there's a 7 to 2% difference between the vast majority of cases that are proven to be true, right? The majority, the kind of following in theme with how the left, takes anecdotes, and they like to focus a lot more on the smaller percentages. Now, here's the thing. Here's what's not being taken into consideration with these statistics. The fact that women lie. So there was a YouTuber who I ran across recently. She's a female. She was at a Brett Kavanaugh protest, and one of the ladies that she was talking to basically admitted that the only reason why she was there was because she didn't want Brett Kavanaugh in the Supreme Court seat. It wasn't about whether he was innocent or guilty. Facts didn't matter. Evidence didn't matter. It didn't matter if Christine Ford was lying. Her whole thing was Brett Kavanaugh must be guilty because I don't want him in the Supreme Court because he doesn't share my opinions on abortion. That was her argument. not word for word, but that is what she said. That is what she admitted on camera. And so, but hashtag believe all women, right? I'll touch more on that here in a second. So and then I came across one of her other videos a couple days ago, and she was talking about how women do lie. This is something that's been proven throughout history. There have been women in the past who have lied because they've had something to gain out of it. It doesn't have to be politically motivated, but women will lie, and they will go to extreme lengths to get what they want, or try to get what they want. The witch trials is a perfect example. She gave some kind of historical context about how women in the past have threatened other women to do something because they wanted their man, stuff like that. And so here's the thing, that 7 to 2 point discrepancy shrinks down even more once you take into consideration the fact that women lie. And here's the thing, if that 7 to 2% gap is women who lie, guess what that means? That means that 100% of all cases that are brought forward that are real are true. That means that we're sitting at a 100% conviction rate, because obviously if the evidence isn't in favor, then it's a fair trial. If the evidence is in favor, it's a fair trial. The rulings are fair. Women do lie, and but that's the springboard that the left uses to prove rape culture. Are you kind of starting to connect the pieces here? Are you kind of starting to get where I'm coming from? It is the women out there. It is the other women out there. They are the ones who are trivializing rape. Ironic, because the definition of rape culture is a culture that trivializes rape. Now, obviously, it's on a grand scale, but I'm just saying it's a little bit hypocritical when the women who are the ones trivializing rape are the ones who are saying that we live in a society that trivializes rape. So, because here's the thing, right? I'm not saying they're not out there, but I've literally never met one man. I've never met one single person in my entire life who has ever said that, something dumb, something along the lines of like, oh, well, what was she wearing? Or what were you wearing? Or, victim blaming, basically. I've never met anyone who's victim blamed before. Ever. But it's actually the feminists on the left who are the ones who victim blame. Because when someone like Brett Kavanaugh comes into the picture, where there's no evidence, there's no story that is consistent, anything, then it's okay to just point the finger at the man, because he must be guilty, because the statistics show and prove, that 98% of women are proven to be true, that because of probability that she should be taken seriously. I believe there's a word, feminists out there, I believe there's a word out there for basing decisions off of someone's sex. See, it's on the tip of my tongue. Oh yeah, it's called sexism. That thing that you fight against, or that you claim to fight against. That thing that you fight for equality for both sexes, but then you say that a man is always guilty because he's a male. Huh. Interesting.